Hello Flosstube, welcome to Snickerdoodle Stitch. My name is Kathleen and this is a channel about cross stitch. So welcome everybody, I'm glad you're joining me today. Today is actually Monday, October 14th, but this is for this Friday. I'm filming early, so I've only got a week of stitching in, but I think I got a good deal done. I got some finishing and some sewing done this weekend. We'll see how long this takes to show you the cross stitch stuff that I have. And if we have time at the end, I will show a couple quilt things, including the quilt that's behind me that I keep meaning to show and tell who it's by and all that fun stuff, and I keep forgetting. So I'm going to dive right into stitching. I am mostly stitching Halloween right now, although I have a couple other things that I've stitched. So a few more weeks and Halloween will be done with me for the year, so I'm pretty focused on that right now. Although I'll be honest, when I was pulling my stuff that I had stitched this week, the Halloween pieces that I'm stitching this year aren't my typical. I tend to like cute Halloween. So, yeah, nothing primitive, gothic looking, but the stuff I have this year is a little darker than what I would normally stitch. But anywho, my FFOs that I have for this week, one thing that I finished is I stitched this actually back, I think in the winter. I bought this last New Year's weekend when I went down to In Stitches in Alexandria, Virginia is where I got this. And I finished it as a brick. And I purposefully looked for fabric that would work but wasn't necessarily Christmas, because this would work just for winter. There's nothing on here Christmassy. It's just some kids playing in the snow in front of the schoolhouse, and you got some cute little cardinals there on the swing and the tree. Let me hold it up closer. And to finish this, I started with the cross stitch and I trimmed it to about here on the block. I mean, I cut it's just a styrofoam block, the size that I wanted. Just cut it. It's a standard size, and then I was able to just cut one end off. It was like a longer brick shape. I cut one end off with a serrated knife, and that gave me the size that I needed. And then my cross stitch, I just wrapped around similar to how you would wrap a present, and I pinned it down. And then I did the same thing with plaid fabric for the back. And then this piece is just wrapped all the way around to cover kind of where those raggedy edges are meeting for me folding up around. And for this, I just made a piece similar to how you would binding. So I made it twice the width that I needed, and then I ironed it in toward the middle on both sides. So it gave me a nice polished seam on both sides, and it's just tacked with a few pins down here. And then I did tack it down with a little bit of fabric glue. So that's all I did to put it in the, to make the block for displaying. So we'll display like that. It's my first time doing one of those, but I'm happy with it. I debated putting cording around. I nixed that idea. I pulled a couple. I didn't want it to look Christmassy, and so that was limiting what I really wanted to do with it. I debated putting some greens or something up here, but same thing. I just wanted to stick to the stitching and have it be a little winter scene. So this is for my smalls exchange this weekend at Stitch New England, and by the time you're watching this, I likely will have already exchanged or been in that. So that's why I'm filming early, because I'm actually leaving tomorrow to go do a little bit of sightseeing up in Connecticut and up around New York City, and then into Connecticut, and then I need to be in Rhode Island Thursday afternoon for the Stitch New England start. So the next thing I finished, these were finished before, but I FFO'd them. So my little, let me take the pumpkin out. My little trick or treat. This is from With Thy Needle and Thread. It's an autumn booklet. I don't have the booklet here, so I don't remember what the name is. The name would be on my last video because I just finished stitching this on the last video. And on the back, I put a little piece of, this is Teresa Kogut fabric. It was out last year or the year before. You might still be able to get a hold of it, but it is a line from a prior year. And I had some left, so really happy with how that came out. I just tacked down some dark brown rickrack around the edge. And I'm going to show you some rickrack later. You'll see why I've used rickrack on both of my finishes this month. And then this is just a little pumpkin pin that's made out of, it's like felted wool. So I have that tacked in there. And then this next one is from Bent Creek, and it is called Cat-O-Lantern. And here it is finished up. I just put some little polka dot fabric on the back. Again, some rickrack. It's looking a little more, it is a deep gold. It's looking a little brighter here than what it actually is. So that's my little cat-o'-lantern pillow all finished up. So these will go in one of my milk glass bowls, which already have a bunch of small Halloween pillows and pin cushions. These two I just filled with polyfill. I often use walnut shells. You can buy them. I know people buy, I think it's Lizard Litter is ground walnut shells. Mine actually came in a huge box. It's like 20 pounds of ground walnut shells that you can buy from Home Depot. They use it for sandblasting. But these I just filled with polyfill. I was thinking I wasn't going to put any pins actually in them. And this is a little bit larger. And sometimes when you fill with the walnut shells, unless you do a combo of walnut shells and polyfill, they can get a little hefty. So just to keep my totes where I store all this stuff manageable to get up and down to the basement, I decided just to go ahead with the polyfill in these. So those are both done. All right, this next one is a start. It is from Winds of Autumn from Blackbird Design. This is a book that is still available. And that's not the front, although I think it looks just the same, the front and the first page. That's odd. So it's from this book, Winds of Autumn, Blackbird Design. And this is the piece that I'm stitching. And I love it as is, but now that I've started stitching it, I'm not sure I'm going to put this flower pot in here. I may. And I'm not sure I'm going to put the zigzaggy border on there. I will do this bottom one because it grounds everything like you know, like the ground. But the borders that are coming up the sides, I don't think I'm going to put on, and I will show you why. Here's where I'm at with my stitching. I'm using the called for. So this is all Weeks Dye Works Black Coffee. And so I got the whole tree done and the owl. The owl has a little bit of Weeks Dye Works Pelican Gray in it. And this is on Steinbeck fabric called Flax. It's very subtle modeling. Like at first I wasn't sure if I had just not ironed it flat. I thought I had grabbed a piece of just flax, you know, Zweigart flax, but it was labeled as Steinbeck flax. So it is slightly over dyed and modeled. But the reason I'm not going to probably do the border, when I first started stitching it, and I thought, I think this might fit in a 5x7 frame. How's it sized? And it would fit very nicely in a 5x7 frame, especially if I did one extra row and raised the top border up like a 1/4 inch. It would be a perfect fit in a 5x7 frame. Knowing that 5x7 frame, the opening is actually anywhere from 3/4 to like a 1/4 inch smaller on each side than that, it would fit perfectly. But then I had a thought, this is a little spookier than most of my Halloween stuff. And I have this piece that I bought at Michael's, I believe, on clearance. I paid $1.50 for it. And I bought it with the intention of mounting something right here. And anybody who watches me knows I don't like birds, especially crows, but it is what it is. It's a Halloween thing, right? Anyway, this will actually fit perfectly if I don't do any of that border at all. So that is where I'm leaning now. It's rare that I would find something the perfect size and shape to fit on this, which isn't cute Halloween. It's a little more primitive looking, which is what would go better with this. So I'm gonna finish stitching this, and I'm gonna mount it on here. I haven't decided if I'm gonna pry this thing off. I think I'm probably just gonna leave it on there and mount over top of it. And it will lift the mounting out, the stitched piece out a little bit too. But yeah, this was originally $15 and I got it 90% off well after Halloween. There might have been something else right here because there is a spot there that looks like another post may have broken off. I don't know what it was. I don't want something else there. And it's probably going to sit up on my mantle where nobody's going to see that top anyway. I'll probably put a dab of black paint in there just to, so it's not as obvious that there's something missing there. But yeah, this is the stitched piece. I started with the tree and the owl because this is almost a full skein of black coffee. I only have a little piece left. And the haunted house that's in the picture, I'm okay if I stitch that in black, but I really wanted the tree and the owl to be that black coffee is a blend of black and like an 844 brown, something like that. And I really wanted the tree and the owl to have those bits of brown in it, but I'm okay if the house is black. So with what's left, I'm probably going to put these little X's in here. These little doodads that aren't really anything other than little doodads. So with that in mind, all I really have left to do is put in the house and that big moon back there. So that's where I'm at with that. That was my start. All right, this next one you're probably sick of seeing, but I really want to finish this one this year. So I'm hoping that I'm taking this one with me to Stitch New England, and I'm hoping I can finish it there. So next time you see me, this should be done. It's the La-Di-Da Something Wicked. It's this pattern, and let me see if I can get it to show up clearly. Maybe not. And I am excited to report I got that whole boot done. So last time you saw me, I had this done and I had the boot done up to about here. So I got all of this done. Not the most exciting stitching by any means. At least when I got up to here, there was some counting involved. Stitching this piece was boring as all get out, but this is on fabric that I hand dyed. It was part of my dyeing experimenting earlier this year. It's 18 count, yes, it's 18 count Aida. I am stitching with 2 strands, or at least I did the black. For the words, I think I'm gonna switch and just do 1 strand. And I may just do 1 strand for the top of the stocking. So it gets like a green straight stocking there. So that in the words, I think I'm just going to stitch in 1 strand, but I wanted the boot to have really solid, nice coverage. So that's where I'm at with that piece. All right, this next one, I caught up. 1 Dozen Quakers. I am doing this as part of EJ from Sunshine Stitcher's Stitch Along, which is the Bake Me a Dozen Sal. And this was broken into 12 pieces. December of last year through November of this year. And then December of this year is a catch-up month. So by the end of October, this is what should be left for November. It's like a little corner down here. And I did just start this in July, but I caught up. So the only thing I have left to put on here is the big motif right here. There's one motif left. I did go ahead and stitch this all the way around and was so excited everything matched up. I was pretty sure it would because there's lots of things to kind of, you know, as I stitched these other things like this motif, I knew, okay, it's starting right above this little thing, and same thing over here. So I was pretty sure it was going to line up, but still always a great feeling. This is on 28 count Lagoon Blue from Zweigart, and I'm using just various silks in teals and greens and gray, and like this is like a gray platinum, these little 1/1 motifs. These are all 1/1. All these little tiny things in here that are this gray color. Someone asked about how I get the coverage with the white. What I used, it is silk. One is Caron and one of them is Dinky Dyes, and they're actually not white. They actually do have some teal in them. If you just held the floss up, it's a pale teal and white. Stitching on this dark cloth, their reading is white, but let me hold it up closer so you can see it. I am really happy with this and excited that I was able to catch up. So I'm set for November. You won't see this one again until next month. It will be my one thing that I'm stitching that's not Christmas, although the color could be Christmassy, so still put me in the mood. And then in January, EJ's going to start a new cell, and it will be Modern Folk Embroidery, Put a Bird on It. So I have that pattern. I haven't started figuring out fabric or floss for that yet. I'm toying with doing it all red on white for my white and red wall that I want to do. But I do really like the colors on the cover of the pattern, although it is charted to be a single color chart. So anything goes with it. I mean, this is not how the Rosewood Manor is charted. This is just what I was able to pick up at a retreat when I really wanted to start this, because EJ was there and Candy, the 614 Stitcher, were there, and they were both working on this and convinced me, oh yeah, you should join, you can catch up. I didn't think I would catch up, but I did. So this was the fabric and floss that I was able to get my hands on at the retreat. All right, I've got one more stitching. This is Fox and Rabbit, which is Hearth. This is it. I will put a picture in up here of where I was at. I really just had the hat, her face, and kind of her shoulders and a little bit of her hair done. And I made some pretty good progress on her. So basically everything from like here down is what I worked on. I got the lantern in and the pumpkin. I got her arms, the bottom part of her bodice, part of her dress there, and I started on the skirt. So I'm happy with the progress on that. I am going to take this with me. I'm hoping that I can finish the skirt on her. This is on 32 count Murtock from Fabrics by Stephanie. The chart was an exclusive at Stitching in the Wild, Garon Stitchery's retreat, and Stephanie was there with her fabric, and when I was walking around with the floss pack for the chart, I just loved it against this fabric, and I'm loving it even more now that I started stitching it. The model, I wasn't crazy about the purple skirt, and so I had hemmed and hawed about whether I was going to do the purple or not. But against this fabric, I actually really liked the purple. There wasn't anything that I was coming up with that I liked any better. I just really liked this. So I decided to stitch it as called for. And I haven't decided. I may not do this part down here. Like, it sort of looks like a little altar or something with the candles and the skulls. I may just do this. So just the witch and the happy Halloween and the bats if I do decide that, I may have this finished next time you see me. So we'll see. I would like to finish it. So that was all of my stitching. Trying to think what next. I did the finishing. I sewed a bunch of project bags. So yes, I have a big stack here of sweater print. I'm getting ready for sweater weather, which is a retreat in a few weeks. Put on by Rebel Stitcher. And it's in Philadelphia. So it's my most local retreat. And she had it last year and it was a lovely retreat. Fantastic room. Best room of any retreat. Because it was kind of a longer room. And one of the walls, the long walls, floor to ceiling was windows. So it looked out over the river. Camden was across the river. But the light was just phenomenal. Like you did not need any kind of table light unless it was evening. So the room, hands down, best stitching room anywhere. I have some stash I was going to show. I forgot, well, I hadn't unpacked completely from my Phoenix trip when I saw you last time. And I finally got around to unpacking my suitcase and found some things that I had hidden in there. So one thing, there is a store in Phoenix called SAS Fabrics. I had been there years ago to buy trims for card making. And so I went there this time for trims for finishing. And I bought boatloads of trims. This will be for some sort of larger pillow type trim. I know what I want to do with this. So you'll be seeing this again at some point. But oodles of rickrack, and some of it is the micro rickrack, and they probably had maybe 30 colors of standard size rickrack and 30 colors of micro rickrack, and the micro rickrack is harder to find. And like the micro rickrack was 20 or 25 cents a yard, so I got a couple yards of a whole ton of different colors of the micro rickrack, and then I got some of the larger rickrack, but not in as many colors. Really just ones that, well, ones that I know I can't easily get just in the package at Walmart or Joann's or wherever. And then like red, I will always use red. And there's actually different colors of red. This was a nice blue red, which is the red that I prefer. Like a 321 as opposed to a 666, which is more of an orangish red, which I'm not as crazy about. But really excited with all the micro rickrack. Super cheap. And some of the colors, like the orange, I picked out just because of Halloween finishing. So that was on my mind because of course it's Halloween season. But that was why these two both had rickrack on them. Because instead of digging around for finishing trims, I just stole from the stash of rickrack that I bought. And then I was at a quilt shop that had buttons in just a big bucket wash bin thing, and you could fill a Ziploc bag, and they are more like antique buttons again. And so I bought a bunch more to go on my Barnwood, what the heck's this thing called? Barnwood buttons, duh. So I had bought some buttons for this a while back, somewhere in my travels, that were antique buttons, but in my head it only had like 6 or 8 buttons. And so I had bought this little bag, but then when I looked at the pattern, I was like, well, shoot, it's gonna take a lot more than this little bag with 8 buttons in it. And so I did go ahead and I bought another little bag. It was like $1.50 for the whole bag of buttons. So I picked those up. I did not stitch on this since you last showed it, but I will show it here since some people are newer and won't have seen it yet. this is where I'm at. And like this square up here gets a button in it. Each of the flowers gets a button on the top. In my head, it wasn't every flower that got a button. And this is on 36 count weeks dye work dolphin, and I'm doing it 1 strand over 2. And I'm actually not loving my stitching, but weight stitching is always a beast. If anybody knows the trick, please let me know. I'm doing it in weight silk from somewhere. It looks like Silks for You. Yes, it is Silks for You. I have a hank of weight Silks for You, which is not a bright weight. It's not like a bleached weight. But anyway, I got buttons to go with that. Sorry, I'm zipping things up. Shouldn't be zipping. And then the other thing I got that I was going to show right before I went on my last trip, and this had come, but I wasn't sure last time I filmed if... So it's a box from Primrose Cottage Stitches, and it's like a surprise box. They called it their Halloween Sip and Stitch box. And I didn't show it last time because they want, you know, everybody to get a chance to get their box and see it before they start seeing online what's in the surprise box. It wouldn't be much of a surprise if they saw online. So it was my first time getting one of these. It popped up, I think, on my Facebook feed, and I'm never in Facebook. For some reason I was on there, probably looking for a schedule or something for one of these retreats. And I thought, I love Primrose Cottage Stitches, so let me go ahead and just get one of these boxes and see what's in there. And it's a very nice box. So it came with some stickers. It has 3 patterns in it. So it has Halloween Cauldron. And these patterns, I think, are likely available now. No Tricks, Just Treats. And these actually, I've cut, so this is another trick. This is the size it will be on the called for. So the called for is 32 count Stormy Night. And I had a very large piece of Stormy Night. And the cauldron here will be this size. So it's a trick you can do is cut out a piece of paper that's the size that your stitching will be. So on 32 count, this was 5 1/8 by 5 1/8. So that's what size this piece of paper is. Excuse me. And this piece of paper is cut for the top of this little pillow. Hold, please. And then I'm missing a piece of paper. It makes it very easy to find where you want to start on your fabric. For me, I was just playing around with these, sorry, laying them on the bigger piece of fabric so that I could decide where I wanted to cut the big piece of fabric, to cut it so that I had plenty of space for everything, but I wasn't wasting fabric. Sorry, if this keeps up, I'll take a break. There is one other pattern in there, and it's this little teeny tiny small. It finishes at, well, it's 32 count. It's going to be about 2 by 2. This little tiny pillow here. So there is the 3 patterns in there, the thing of stickers, the fabric and trims and everything for finishing the little trick-or-treat pillow. So all the trims and everything you need for that are in there. And then for this piece, there is a really nice bamboo embroidery hoop, and it's a very nice quality one. It's not like the ones you see for, I don't know, they used to be $1 or 2 for $1. I have no idea how much they are because I never buy them, but it's much nicer quality than the really cheap wooden ones that you see in, you know, Walmart, Joann's, wherever. It's a really nice bamboo. It's very smooth. The edges are all rounded. It's very nice. But so that will work for the cauldron. So, and then there's all the floss. I cut my piece of fabric, so I'm taking this with me this weekend. In fact, I need to get this not too discombobulated. And then the other things in there, much like the stickers, are really not, you don't need them for the project. So one thing they had in there was this mug. And it does say Stitcher's Brew, Primrose Cottage Stitches, or just Primrose Cottage. I will never use this as a mug. Another mug is the last thing I need. But they show the little tiny pillow that I said would be 2 inches. They show this just with some crinkled paper in here, and that little pillow just balanced on top. And that's kind of what I thought when I saw this. You could either use it that way just to, well, if I can find the right one. Sorry, I've got the pattern here, but the pattern is actually on the top. So see how they've just got the little pillow tucked, just sitting in there. Or if you had a round piece, you could actually do it like a pin cushion. I have the pin cushion that I use that's next to my sewing machine is in a Ziggy mug, and the pin cushion, you know, it's just rounded in the top. So really nice piece for finishing. And then there are some candy corn floss drops. How cute are those? I love those. They're just really cute. I'm in the candy corn camp. It's either I love it or hate it. Candy, I've been asking my teams this. I had to do some team building sessions with all of my teams last week. So last week was crazy busy with those, but while we were waiting for everybody to join, that was my question to everybody. Candy corn, yay or nay? I'm a huge yay column for that. I do realize it's corn syrup, but I love candy corn. I love the smell of it. So yeah, candy corn floss straps. And then the last thing are some little charms. So, yeah, it's not an inexpensive box, but you definitely get your value out of it. I mean, like any kind of mystery thing, if there's something in there you don't like, don't want, don't use, the value of the mysteries of the box starts to decrease for you. I don't belong to any Fabric of the Month clubs, and I really, really would love to, but I know I'm going to get fabrics in colors or with modeling that I'm not crazy about. So for me, I've made the decision that although a surprise every month would be nice, my budget's probably better spent picking my fabric out myself. I also get to go lots of places where I get to see lots of different fabric in person. But I'm very happy with this stitch box, and I knew that I loved their patterns enough that it was unlikely that it was going to be a pattern that I didn't like. Are they my favorite pattern? No, but they are very stinking cute, and I am going to stitch them. So, yeah, I saw that they have a Christmas one as well, or holiday one, winter one, probably Christmas. And I may keep an eye out for it. So that is what their sip and stitch, they call it, what their sip and stitch boxes are like. I have one more bit of, oh, this is silly haul. So this little frog here, it's a long story. I needed a small case when I was on my travels, and I was digging around in Marshall's, and I really didn't want to spend more than a couple dollars for what I needed it for. I only needed it for the trip for a short period of time to keep something in. And this was a manicure kit, but it's got this little frog on it on both sides. It's a really nice little clasp. I got rid of the implements that are in here, but it's got elastic, which would work to hold a little pair of scissors. I'm going to make a little stitchy kit out of this. I haven't decided if I'm going to leave the elastic on both sides. I mean, this is where like an emery board was, and scissors, and some kind of nail clippers, and I don't know. I don't even remember what all was in there. An orange stick. I haven't decided if I'm going to leave the elastic on both sides or just on one side. I may take it out and put something else in, like a magnet. But anyway, you never know when you're going to find something for stitching. Marshall's, it was up by the register. I had given up on looking for it for what I wanted it for. And then just up by the register, I was like, huh, well, how much are those? And they were like, I don't know, $1.99, I think. All right. I am going to switch now to quilting talking for a bit. I have a few quilt patterns that I've picked up, and I was going to show that quilt. And let me start by, this is a table runner that I have now on my dining room table. I believe this will probably be on my thumbnail photo for this video. This is really long. It's very long. Let me just cover my face. And then the back is bright. So my dining room is very bright. It's yellow and it has red accents. So Halloween colors become problematic for me because I do have so much red in the house, and some of the Halloween stuff just clashes. But so that's why this is these colors. And this is a super easy quilt or table runner. It is just 2.5-inch strips sewn together, and then it's one of the Creative Grids rulers. You could do it with any of the really long triangle rulers. It just would make it wider or narrower depending on which one you have. And so I made 2 sets. This is one set of strips. Actually, I made one, this is one set of strips. And then you use the ruler and keep flipping it and cut that, and then you sew them together flipped as well. And it just gives you this. I think, is it loose leaf? It's patterns. They're 8.5 by 11. They're 1-pagers. They're often just in like a paper rack kind of thing. I think they're loose leaf. It does have a pattern for this. I didn't buy the loose leaf, but, and then the binding, I just have a flanged binding on there. This is my favorite binding to do when I don't feel like hand stitching a binding on. For as much as I love cross stitch, I don't like hand stitching sewing. And so it has to be a special quilt for me to be excited enough about hand stitching the binding on. The quilt behind me, I do know I hand stitched that binding on, but the flanged binding is one of my favorite techniques because you stitch it on the back and then flip it to the front, and you stitch it down in the ditch along the flange, and so it masks the seam very well, and gives you a nice neat binding. I will put the link in below to my favorite site that I go back to over and over again still, mostly because I can never remember the size of the 2 fabrics that you need to make the flange. So I'll put the link in below to the site that I always go to that does show how to do the flanged binding. And then I picked up a couple quilt patterns over the last several months. When I was in Oregon, I went to I can't think of the name of the shop, but Cottage Quilts is their pattern line, and I picked up this pattern, Cosmos. They had a sample of this in the shop that was done in different colors. It was still bright, primary-ish colors. It is gorgeous in person, and so I picked up that pattern. It's a lot. It's half square triangles. The stars are snowballed, but pretty simple, even though it doesn't look simple. So this is called Cosmos from Cottage Quilts. And then I picked up seed pods. From Fiberworks. I did a cat from her. I'll have to see if I can find the cat. I didn't like it after it was done. And if I can remember next time, I'll show you my funny pictures of the cat, because it looked like the poster from Silence of the Lambs. You'll recall, if I describe it, if you may remember this poster. It left a definite impression on me. So it was Clarice's face, or somebody's face. It was a woman's face, and there was a moth over her mouth, like silencing her. And my cat, because to do these, you cut out printed fabrics and stuff. I cut out a piece, I think it was a butterfly, to go on my cat. And every time I looked at this cat, all I could think of was the Silence of the Lambs poster. So, you know what? I will put the pictures in up here. I know I have a photograph of both my cat and the Silence of the Lamb poster. I'll stick them in up here so you can see what kind of disaster it was. I did actually change the mouth, so it doesn't look like that anymore. But now every time I look at that quilt, that's all I can think of. Luckily, it's just a smaller, like art quilt. And so it's got that mouth. And then when I was cutting the pieces out for that quilt was not a happy time in my life. So I have some bad associations with that as well. So I'm not even sure where the quilt's at. But I got the flowers. I've gone off on a tangent again. I got these flowers, and I really want to do a quilt like this. And I probably didn't need the pattern because I could freeform a lot of that, but I did get the pattern because I wasn't going to remember what I wanted to do and other fun stuff. And this last pattern I got is from a company I've never heard of, Happy Hollow Designs. And it's a pattern plus pack, and it's called Happy Jacks. And that is it's a table runner, and it's a lot of just small squares, but it comes with all of the accoutrements to finish it. So like this is really raffia here on each one, and the letters that say Happy Fall in the mouths are these button thingamabobs. And then there's black buttons for the little eyes. So it's a very 3D table runner. But I had never seen those before, and I got it when I was at, it was a quilt shop on my way to the Grand Canyon, somewhere up around, before I got to Sedona. So not too far north of Phoenix. And they had these, and I thought that was really, really cute. And I liked all the accoutrements in there. So I think that is everything for today, except I am going to break and, or I'm gonna attach a second video space about the quilt that's behind me. The quilt that's behind me is a Camille Roskelley pattern called Thimble Blossoms. And it's an older pattern. It's 7 years ago. I did it with American Jean fabrics, and then the brown for the spool ends, I know looking at it, those are Lori Holt, except that right there. I think it's just a brown and white polka dot, but like that I know is a B Basics. But the spools themselves I did with American Jean, and then I had to mix in a few other vintage fabrics just because I needed them in sets. Like I needed 3 different greens and 3 different blues and 3 different reds, and just to level out the sets and get my spools to work. I do know I mixed in just like a fat quarter or 2 of some other fabric just to get those to work out all right. So I am going to stop this and I will zoom in closer on that and I'll show you the back. But everybody have a fantastic week, and I look forward to seeing you when I get back from my retreat, and should have a few more finishes hopefully, and a lot of stitching and probably some haul, which I don't need, although I do have a small shopping list for Market that I have resisted buying online because I know I've got lots of travels and stuff, and I'm hoping that I can just find them that way. So happy stitching, and if I'm going to see you at one of the retreats, either Stitch New England or Sweater Weather, those are my last 2 for the year, thank God. I really need to just be home and catch up on some stuff here. But if you're going to be at either of those, please, please, please stop and say hi, because I love meeting people in person. So happy stitching, and I'll talk to you all soon. Okay, this is almost my full quilt of spools too. And I'm going to move up closer now so you can see it up close. This is all done with American Jean fabrics. It's just 2.5-inch strips that are sewn together to make these. It's a very simple pattern to do. Probably the trickiest part is this little tiny corner that gets snowballed on the end on each spool. And then that point, ideally, like this one does match up really well. That point right there has to match that. That is the only thing you really have to match up in this entire quilt, is that one little intersection on each one of these. So it's a super simple quilt to do. It would work with all kinds of different fabrics. I think the trick is just doing it in a way that you can maintain, like, you know, this is an orange spool, even though it's 3 different fabrics, or a blue spool, even though it's 3 different fabrics. So that was where I did have to mix in a few fabrics that were not in the jelly roll. So I did use a jelly roll. Like, I'm pretty sure these cats right here were added because I know I have quite a bit of that in fat quarters. And I know those aren't part of that line, but that is the fabric. And then the back, I have no idea who this is from, but it is all these little, you know, they look, let me turn it so you can actually see it straight on. They all look like they're embroidered. I love that little girl on the bicycle. Got a little bird. I do not know who that fabric is from. I bought several yards of it on from a discount fabric spot. So, and then it wasn't quite wide enough. So that's why I've got the red with the pink, how about white polka dots on both sides. And then the binding on this one, the binding is actually pieced. Okay, that red piece was longer than I thought it was. You can see like here. I used leftover pieces from the jelly roll that I used for this quilt. So if I back up so you can see more, look, the lighting's not great in here. You can see that it's not a single binding, it's a pieced binding. And I did hand stitch that binding on. So that is the spool quilt that you've been seeing behind me for a while now. It's going to be rotating out here soon. Probably when I put things up for Christmas. I got a Christmas tree that goes back here, and I'll be moving out the spools at that time. So that's a little bit of the quilt you've been seeing and my fall quilting. And I hope everybody's having a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.